Welcome back to another episode of Real Talk with a Vulnerable Angel and Friends. I am your host, the Vulnerable Angel, Dominica May. Tonight, at the moment, I am being joined by one of my regular guests, Mike. Join us, Mike. And Sharad should be joining us later on.
Surprise!
Hey.
I'm here.
I thought you were going to ghost me for a minute. Oh no, I have to do this discussion all by myself.
I was thinking about like how can I drag this out, the introduction a little bit and make you sweat.
Oh no. Well, I could have just got into explaining. So if you are joining us for the very first time right now, oh my God, Mike. What this show is we just have some deep, vulnerable, personal conversations about topics that some people maybe don't talk about very often, especially in public places. And recently I've switched to adding themes to each episode. Last week, my dad asked us a question related to Sigma males, and we were like, what is that? So I asked ChatGPT for some rundown, and then we decided that we would kind of flow from that into this episode. So this episode is called Alpha, Beta, Sigma, or Just Human. That title is also courtesy of ChatGPT.
I think last week we where at least I came to the conclusion that I think Sigma male is the ideal.
Yeah.
Just kind of chill, relax.
That's right.
Let things be things.
That's how it seemed. But I thought, if this is your first time hearing about these so-called male archetypes that was invented by guys just talking on online, I guess it's not a psychological kind of thing that has been studied. It's just internet speak from a particular subset of guys that want to categorize them in such a way. We're all wolves, and this is the type of wolf pack I am. So I asked ChatGPT to give me in 30 words or less a quick summary of the different male archetypes under this, and it turns out it's not just the alpha, beta, and sigma that we kind of discussed briefly last week, but there are 3 other ones. There's omega, delta, and I was sad to see gamma was already taken, so I couldn't use.
There is a gamma male.
There's a gamma male. I made a joke about gamma males last week,
and it's not this gamma male.
It's not the Hulk. But I'm going to bring up all of the different explanations that ChatGPT gave me before we get into the questions that it suggested for us to discuss as well. So here's the alpha male, which people might be the most familiar with, the guys like in the manosphere of like, I'm an alpha kind of thing. So the alpha male is the confident, dominant leader type, charismatic, assertive, and often seen as the pack's frontman. So paxy.
What?
It says the pack's frontman, so it is a very wolf term, right?
Yeah. At least it's not the pack's wolf man.
Right, yeah, there you go. It's like they're a wolf band. The front man isn't like the lead singer, right?
I mean, Wolfman Jack, very famous disc jockey back in the 60s.
There you go. Thrives on status and control in social or professional settings. Wow. Okay. And the beta male, or beta male, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Supportive, sensitive, and cooperative, often avoids conflict, seeks harmony, and values emotional connection. May lack assertiveness, but offers depth and loyalty in relationships. And
I like this definition much better than the definition we had last week, which was submissive and answers to the alpha.
I forgot that. Yeah, but like, I mean, this is the one where I feel like the guys that want to be alphas or purport to be alphas like are always ragging on the beta males like
Yeah,
and stuff. This
yeah.
this definition I think is actually I would rather be with
I
a
like
guy
this
like
definition.
this. I would rather be with a guy like this than the alpha definition. All right, then the Sigma male, which I think my dad must kind of identify with this one, and that was why he brought it up. So the Sigma male is independent, introspective loner. Was it a loner last time? Maybe a little bit.
No,
No.
this is new information.
Okay. Moves outside traditional hierarchies, values freedom over status, mysterious, self reliant, and quietly confident. Often misunderstood or underestimated.
Interesting.
Do you feel like this is
I feel like this definition is a little different from
the
last week's
last week's?
definition.
Yeah.
Um,
This is what happens
where
when
are
I
you
ask it
getting
to summarize in fewer words.
where this is all AI generated?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it would probably be slightly different if I was looking it up somewhere else, but I'm like, I'm using ChatGPT for my questions, so let's just ask it for
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Then the next one, which is one that we hadn't heard of before, the Omega male, is the rebellious outsider, rejects social structures entirely, often indifferent to success or power, maybe quirky, cynical, or directionless, seen as the anti-hero of male archetypes. Would that be like the rebel without a cause type?
I mean, I definitely resonate. There's a lot of this that resonates inside of me, but also when you read it, like what I'm picturing is Judd Nelson from The Breakfast Club.
Okay. I do you want to elaborate on that for those of us who maybe haven't seen the film for a very long time?
Judd Nelson, from the movie The Breakfast Club. Judd Nelson was uh, he was the, he wasn't a bully. He wasn't a bully, but he was the kid who resorted to like anger and he was the kid who always had like the pack of cigarettes on him, which was like the ooh, like, oh, you're a bad kid, oh, you're rebellious, ooh. And like he never obeyed the rules. Like the rules were always something to be pushed back against, which was always getting him in trouble, kind of
Mm,
thing.
mm.
So, but yeah, I mean, rejects social structures entirely. I don't entirely reject social structures, but I definitely push back against a lot of social structures because oftentimes they're bullshit.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
they're just constructs that we create for ourselves to create order, which, excuse me, depending on what kind of an order you're looking to establish, sometimes they're necessary. But if they're just social for like, I don't know, I keep going back to Mormon culture because that's what I grew up in, right?
Mhm.
A good Mormon goes to BYU to call for college. Um, why? Like that? Okay, you can't. That's the only way for you to be a good Mormon boy is to go to BYU. Get the fuck out of here.
Reading most of this, I feel like is very similar to an autistic person without, like, if you ignore the rebellious outsider part, because I don't feel like autistic people are rebellious per se, but we don't like hierarchies, which is the kind of social structures part of that. We see everyone as our equal, regardless of where you are in the hierarchy of social status. So we don't care about success or power. There's definitely the quirkiness, potentially cynical, sometimes directionless. So I can see some relations to that. Um,
But Also, I think it's important to note no one person is
Oh,
only
yeah.
one.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
we're
right.
all
That's right.
amalgamations of these.
Which is why, the title of this is "Or Just Human," because
Human.
because I reject any kinds of like boxing people into things. So this was more out of curiosity based on what came up in last week's stream. All right, the next male archetype is the Delta male. The everyman, hardworking, modest, and emotionally complex. May have once been an alpha or beta, but stepped away due to disillusionment or life changes. Prioritizes peace over power. That's it. May have once been alpha or beta.
Logan, the Wolverine.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Disillusionment and yeah. Mm-hmm.
Also, maybe
But
like not John Wayne the person, but John Wayne the
the
character
character.
later in life. Yeah.
Yeah. Prioritizing peace over power, though. Sometimes, like, Wolverine is not afraid to attack.
No. He does. He does prioritize peace over power because he's using violence to strip power from people who wish to wield it for selfish gain.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Okay. Then the Gamma male, which is unfortunately not the Hulk. Although, I mean, let's see how much fits.
Well, intelligent. That's
it,
the first
it,
thing.
it fits. It fits with Bruce Banner, probably. Okay, Gamma male, intelligent, introspective, and emotionally sensitive.
Intelligent, introspective, and
Emotionally
emotionally sensitive.
sensitive. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
I mean, emotionally sensitive has all kinds of different sorts of connotations, but
Yeah.
sensitivity means that he's very reactive, right? Don't you say anything bad about my mom or rawr, right?
Yeah, and then like in what I think is the first Avengers movie where Scarlett Johansson, sings the song to get him to calm down or something, right?
Yeah, it was number 2.
Or 2, the second one. It was one of them, one of the early ones.
Hey,
Often,
big guy, the sun's getting real low.
yeah, often overlooked socially, but deeply aware. I mean, yeah, a lot of people don't want to associate with the Hulk. Can carry resentment towards dominant archetypes, yet seeks meaningful connection and recognition. You know what? I think that probably fits. There you go. Gamma male actually fits my joke for the Hulk.
Which begs the question: did Stan Lee do his homework, or was he just, or did the social scientists, when creating this terminology, did they go,
They
all right,
based
well,
it.
all right.
They based it on Bruce Banner and the Hulk. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that's something else for us to dive into later, I guess. All right, so those are our 6 Greek letter male archetypes.
Hulk is he's going to join us.
Great. He just like last week, Hulk is part of the conversation.
What just happened?
Messing around with the stream and it's going to I'm trying to scroll up on my list of things and it's scrolling up in the hang on, I know what I can do that way and then it's not going to screw it and I can scroll up how I want to. Woohoo. All right, first question supplied by ChatGPT as we discuss male archetypes and or whether or not the guys are just human. All right. So when you hear terms like alpha, beta, or sigma male, do any of them feel relatable to you? Or do you feel or do they feel limiting? Now that we've explored all of the different types. You did say one of them kind of resonated with you a little bit.
Um, yeah. So, I mean, last week's definition, and I wish
I
we
could pull it
had
up
it
again.
readily available, but I resonated with last week's definition of the Sigma male. Um, but I mean, let's be honest, I am all of these. Like, there's
To different
alpha
degrees.
male. Yeah, to different degrees. And it all depends on like social settings too, right? So like I can be alpha, I can be beta. In fact, I am beta quite often when I'm just at home because I just need to recharge my batteries. So I'm very quiet. I keep to myself. Um, well, keep to myself. Like I like to zone out. I zone out a lot. Because my life is so busy. So I do value that kind of alone time to turn my brain off and just exist. But yeah, how
Do
about you?
do you want me to pull up last week's definition
Oh,
of
yes.
Sigma? Because I did. It's easy to find when I have ChatGPT open,
Yes, please.
and it saves me history. So last week's definition of the Sigma male was typically described as a man who is independent, self-reliant, and operates outside of the traditional dominance hierarchy, like alpha or beta roles. He does his own thing, doesn't crave leadership or submission, and values autonomy above status. Common traits associated with Sigma male: loner by choice. So I did say loner last week. Comfortable being alone, but not necessarily antisocial. Self-sufficient, mysterious or introverted, nonconformist, highly intelligent or strategic, confident but quiet. Yeah. So
Most of those are me.
yeah,
And I think that definition resonates with me so much stronger than the this
the
week's
one that I
stuff.
pulled up. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair. For me, I mean, like I said, I'm not. I think this is a very unusual thing. This isn't really like the women don't really like dive into these different male archetypes. I feel like this is very much a thing that has become popular with men on the internet, and not all men, obviously, just a certain subset of men who've like decided they want to kind of associate with different ones. um, but we don't. I mean, women don't have these kinds of labels for us. But I can definitely. I don't know. I guess which one would I fall under out of all of those? Maybe I know. I'm probably a mixture of the Sigma definition one as well, or also what? I'm probably a mix of different ones. A little bit beta, and maybe a little bit of the omega one as well. And then the emotionally complex aspect of the delta, emotionally sensitive of the gamma. Like it's too. I do feel that they're limiting. Like
Yeah.
it you can't human identity and human experience cannot really be narrowed down into like just this because it can't be narrowed down into just a small collection of traits because it's very dependent on like what else you're exposed to and context, as you were saying. We wear masks in certain situations. I think that's something we've kind of talked about on past streams as well. So yeah, I feel that it's very limiting to kind of talk.
So like you remember like 15, 20 years ago when different types of sexuality started emerging, not started emerging, but like we started giving terminology.
Right.
Uh,
It was more common, became more common vernacular.
yeah, yes. And uh, there was this whole discussion, and again, like going back 20 years, um, that people can't be put into a box. Like, okay, well, hey, we have the all these different terminologies, right, for different types of sexuality, um, and gender expression, and things like that, right? And I remember there was a big pushback. It was mostly the heteronormative people that were trying to be inclusive and saying, "Look at all these terms that we've created for you," and then everyone who identified with any of those terms were just kind of like, "I'm good," right? And then we fast forward like 10 years, and those terms had now been embraced, and it helped for people to have that like specific, this is who I am, right? So we even look at terms like bi versus pan, right? Same thing. It's just
Yep.
a different name. It's the exact same thing.
That's how I see it. Other people define them differently, but I do see them as the same thing. And so I use for myself the term bisexual, but it means the same thing as how other people see. But I think there is a slight difference for some people in terms of whether like how much a person's gender impacts their attraction or something, like whether or not you see them as a person first or you see their gender first or something. I don't know. But
of course there are subtle differences, but my whole point for bringing this up is wherever we're at, like culturally and generationally, it takes time for the masses to embrace certain things. And if it does get embraced, I feel like it has lasting power. Whereas some things that are introduced are, sure, they're introduced, sure. But if it doesn't matter, then they just kind of go away.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. There's a lot of things now that is more, part of common vernacular. Like the incel culture was something from quite a while ago, but it's only more recently been a word that a lot more people are familiar with, rather than that subculture of incels, right?
I'm not familiar with incel. I'm not familiar.
You're not familiar. How are you not familiar with incel? Okay, so
I haven't been exposed to it, I guess.
Incel is a contraction of involuntarily celibate. So these are the guys who think they should be owed sex, and it sucks that they're not getting laid. So they would be having sex if they could. So they are involuntarily celibate, and it's become like a common term in vernacular of to describe basically the loser guy that is sitting in their mum's basement, having no life kind of thing, who do not know how to associate with women, all of that kind of thing. So it is used as an insult for from a lot of people, but there are also self-identifying incels who have formed a community around that.
Kind of maybe in a similar way that cuckold was embraced. Originally like an insult. Oh, you're such a cuckold.
And then there's the guys that like being cuckolded. Please have sex with my wife.
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of one of my ex-husband's things. And I'm like, please don't shop me around to other people like that.
I don't know. People are into what they're into. So.
Anyway, yeah. And how there is a lot more embracing of autism and understanding of what that means now, and other neurodivergence, and depending on what kinds of things you're exposed to on the internet kind of varies, but like a lot of psychology stuff that I follow has become more dominant in narratives like and narcissists and attachment theory stuff and all of that. So yeah, wow, we were already kind of meandered away from that question, but guess what?
Bit, but did we really? Because do they feel limiting?
Yeah,
I feel like that was the whole
I suppose so.
thesis here. Do they feel limiting? Some people they are, and some people they're what's the opposite of limiting?
They embrace the
enable. I don't.
they embrace the label the same way that some people embrace the label of a certain sexuality versus other people like don't label yourself, you're more than just your label. Guess what, Daniel is back in the chat.
Daniel,
we'll bring up a couple of his comments here. He says loves Nerf basketball and Dominica's Halo. Like a tiny feathered hoop. He shoots, he scores. You wish, Daniel.
God, fired. Shots fired.
Oh, I couldn't help myself.
I mean, if you didn't say it, I was going to.
There you go. And then he also comments on Hulk is still trying to find the clinical term for those who like to have intercourse with green people with anger issues. Daniel, I don't think you were here. I don't know if you were here when we were talking about this, but we've determined that he is the gamma male.
He's a quintessential gamma male.
But but that was something we determined last week. It was like, no, he's I decided without even knowing that gamma male was a whole thing, just because gamma radiation created him.
Maybe like having sex with can you bring his
the comment back up?
Comment back up. Yeah. Having intercourse with people who are green, is that what it is?
Green people with anger issues. So She-Hulk would count.
It's just called gamming. I don't know why Hulk is still trying to come up with the term, because it's called gamming.
There you go. Yeah. That's what it is. So we've all learned something today. All right. The next question from ChatGPT is, do you think these archetypes help or hurt men's ability to express their full selves?
Again, depends on the person. So, I mean, everyone's on a different, not autistic spectrum, but like a life spectrum, right? And so we're all influenced by, our experiences and people around us and whatever. So for some people, they would, by the sheer nature of who they are and the community that they associate with, those terms would be condemned. They would just the sheer fact that they exist anger those people. But then for other people, it helps to have them figure out their identity and who they are. And then for other people, they just use it as a jumping off point.
Yeah, I think it. Personally, I think it probably hurts more than it helps. Maybe it helps some, but from what I've seen, not that I've been exposed to a lot of this, but particularly with like my ex-husband seeing himself as a beta male, and how that kind of harmed how he kind of perceived the world around him. I think that it limited him and felt like he couldn't change who he was. And I feel like, with the kind of, subculture around this with, the so-called alpha male types that are trying to speak to, easily influenced young men who, are still looking for their place in the world. And then, it then creates this, at least with the ones that want to be the alpha male types, I think it's one of the things that kind of leans into misogyny and, hating women, and rather than being more respectful and having healthier relationships. So that's the part in particular that I think where it hurts and harms
So
men.
let me see if I understand you correctly. Because someone has been labeled by a certain archetype, or they identify with a certain archetype, they tend to believe this is who I am, so they play into that. Is that what you're saying?
Or just, the ones that are
No problem.
influenced by, the types of guys that, call themselves alphas and like tell the guys how to be an alpha, which is basically
I see what
being
you're saying. Yeah,
on hating women, or, using
yeah.
women rather than, seeing them as their equals. That's where I think a lot of the harm comes in, because they, there's this idea in this subset of the community that's like the alpha is the best and what you should try or
Right.
want to emulate, right? So it's not, so when that's the perceived like best type of man that you can be, then yes, I think that limits those men's ability to express their full selves, because it means that they have to suppress other parts of themselves that do not kind of match up or line up with the so-called alpha male archetype.
To piggyback off of that, you watch The Office, right?
The Office? No, I haven't.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know. But you're familiar with the show. Have you seen any episodes?
I've maybe seen clips here and there, but
So, so in what you were just describing, that's how I see the main character of Michael Scott, portrayed by Steve Carell. Michael Scott is, I don't think anyone would reject this term, which is he's a bit of a dummy. Um, uh, but I think that Michael Scott tries to act the part that he believes society values.
Mhm.
And who are the people that he admires? Who are the people that he looks up to? The people that A, make fun of him, but also accept him.
Mhm.
So there's this character in the show named Todd Packer. Um, and I can't for the life of me remember the name of the actor who played him. He was an anchorman. Um, he has that like gross, like he's just a gross person in terms of how he treats people.
Okay.
He treats women like objects, that kind of gross person. Um, and Michael Scott looks up to him. And throughout the course of the series, we get to see how Michael Scott starts to become disillusioned with his friendship with Todd Packer. And then eventually he rejects Todd Packer as one of his friends. So you get to see that character growth. But it starts from this place of Michael Scott acts the way that he does. He's an ass. He acts like an ass because that in his mind is who he thinks he's supposed to be like,
Mhm.
and he continues to emulate that. So I to your point, I think that is like that archetype definitely does
Yeah.
hurt people when looking at characters like Michael Scott, because he could have been so much more. He can, by the end of the show, he becomes so much more uh
Mhm.
than that. But how many years has
Right.
he lost in personal development?
Yeah. And that's how I see, like a lot of the Gen Z men who voted Republican or for Trump are, it seems to be the disillusioned guys that want to be the alpha types that get women and stuff, who follow these kinds of so-called alpha podcasters and things that yeah, so I do feel it's harmful for society. It's not just harmful to the men themselves. If maybe like some of the other archetypes were held up to a similar kind of standard of this is also a good male archetype to live up to, maybe it would be less harmful. But the perception of just the alpha being the best, in that particular subculture, just that's the part that I feel like is the most limiting and the most harmful. Yeah. All right. More comments from Daniel. Commented on the "you wish" Dominic. Yeah, I did. I didn't know the magic lamp was from Timo.
Oh man.
And didn't actually come with a G.
That's embarrassing.
Well, did you get 145% tax on the import from Timo on the magic lamp? I'm curious.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
It comes from China, those products, right?
Yeah, they do.
He also says, in the long run, it hurts them because many feel like they have to fall into this false sense of bravado or manhood, like the Tates. That's the one that I was thinking. I couldn't remember what they were called, but the Tates, yeah, which are god-awful examples. I forget the first names, but the ones that, like, they were stuck in somewhere in Eastern Europe because they had been charged with what was it? Human trafficking, I think. And Trump was like, "You can come back now," and let them back into the United States. Have you not heard this story?
No.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I can't remember the Tate brothers. And Andrew Tate is the main one.
You say the Tates, and all I can think of are those cookies in a green bag.
And they were kickboxers and internet personalities. Romania. So there you go. Daniel says they were stuck in Romania. I knew it was somewhere in Eastern Europe.
Huh. No, I've never heard of them.
So they're originally they're also in the UK. So Andrew Tate was a housemate on Big Brother 17 in the UK. But before coming into the house, he was an established mixed martial artist. So yeah,
they're alleged human traffickers.
Yeah, for basically prostituting women and getting them, like manipulating them into that sort of thing. And yeah, but a lot of young guys were looking up to them because they seemed to be like this alpha male type that they wanted to emulate. And it's like, no, the advice that you get from these guys. I'm glad to know that you have not been exposed to this, Mike, because I feel like this is the kind of thing that an algorithm would try and push that kind of content to any kind of guy, really. That's but maybe you're just not easily influenced by that sort of thing.
I watched people getting pimples popped.
There you go. They need to have pimples popped on the Tate brothers. No, anyway, next question is, what kind of masculinity were you raised to admire, and has that changed over time?
Oh man, was I raised to admire? Well, I don't think I was raised to admire any sort of masculinity. Well, no, I guess that's not true. I guess I was raised to admire a patriarchal dominant life, society, group of people, ways of doing things. And that all came out of my religious upbringing. Men are the head of the household. They get the final say. Now a fair man will have a group discussion, a family discussion, but it is up to the penis holder to make
the final decision.
final decision. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
He who holds the penis holds the power.
And then would you say that that's changed since then? I think that from what you've shared is probably has. You're more egalitarian now, right?
Nope. Men rule the house. Sorry. I mean, yes, just that man.
I feel like for my experience, because my dad was like the opposite of that kind of man.
Oh, Casey Jones, you're such a big, strong man. That's right. Pam, get back to the kitchen, woman. Pam.
As I was saying.
I had to.
No, that's fine. No, my dad was like the opposite of that kind of my mum was the head of household breadwinner in my family. So if I had any kind of role model of what men should be like, I suppose my dad would be the one to that would fall under that kind of category. And he was much more, stereotypically effeminate. More sensitive emotionally. It was easier to talk about feelings with my dad than it was my mum. So I guess I didn't have like a traditional idea of what men should be like. So if I had any kind of other perceptions of what I should admire, it would have been through media influence, like the kinds of, hot movie star guys, which ones was I attracted to kind of thing. But even then it was like, I wasn't attracted to the ones that were like, big muscles and kinds of stuff. It was more subdued in character and more depth, I guess. So
the community that I was raised in, men were portrayed, and again, this is a massive generalization, but this is how I viewed what a man is or was from a young age, just based on what I saw and what I was exposed to, and stuff like that, which is men. I'm just gonna throw out like verbal diarrhea.
Sure, go ahead.
NASCAR, beer, cars, women, football, sports. Men had blue collar jobs. They worked with their hands. They didn't show their emotions. This is all stereotypical like men guy stuff. Men drank beer, and if you were a really hard man, not a man with a hard on, but I don't know, maybe. But like if you were really grizzled, you drank liquor.
Whiskey, bourbon.
Men had authority, right? Men kept their household in order. Men kept their women in line, so to
Mhm.
speak.
Mhm.
Um, and that those were all traits that were valued, or at least my perception was that those were all things that were valued. Men cursed, men never laid their hands on a woman in public. Men um, uh, uh, always had greasy t-shirts, and their hands were always like stained with oil.
Yeah.
Uh, Men were hairy, you know, uh, all of this stuff. And it's, I mean, now, 30 years later, 30 plus years later, we come to understand that these are all like toxic masculine. Not all, sorry, no,
No.
but there's a lot that I mentioned that are toxic masculine traits.
I think it depends on how you go into the extreme of it, right?
Right.
Whether I mean, yes, the if you lean into the abusive side of things, for sure, but those things on their own are not necessarily toxic. Like, you can be a football fan without being a dick about it.
I don't know if you can. I don't know if you
I
can.
I know people who are fans of football that I would not describe as that,
Sure.
stereotypical
Yeah.
rugged guy, right? So that's why I'm saying it's that all of these things by themselves are not inherently, signs of a toxic dude. um, but yeah, like when you stack them all up together and they've been, put up as a pedestal of like, this is how you should be. And I feel like that still kind of that stereotype still permeates in our culture today, and that's why there's so many young angry dudes that listen to people like Andrew Tate, because they're mad that is not actually respected anymore, and they because
Yeah.
they want to be appreciated for
Yeah.
being that type of guy,
Yeah.
and because they can't be, then they harbor all this resentment rather than leaning into the stuff that they could be doing to actually
Yeah.
get the relationship that they want. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Next question.
I'm going to pull up. Daniel's left us another couple of comments. So I'll pull up those before I go to the
Keep 'em
questions.
coming in, Daniel.
So he says that he was raised as a lion, sworn to avenge his father's death. Oh, wait, that was Simba. Never mind.
I was really hoping you were going to lean into that instead of.
No, yeah, too bad. But Simba ran away.
But that does remind me of this time that I went on a safari. My family and I, we all went on a safari to Africa, and my cousin Mufasa was there, and tragically, he did get trampled by a pack of wildebeest, and I just remember um, climbing down into the ravine and looking at my cousin's dead body. And it turns out that, and this took years, absolutely years to figure out, but it was actually his uncle, um, which I guess would have been my uncle too. Or maybe it was my father. Maybe it was my father who killed my cousin.
Tragic story. Yeah. All right. Daniel also says, fake country manly voice. Woo! Want me a woman covered in NASCAR sponsorship stickers made out of football leather, has dinner ready when I get home, always puts out, and orgasms beer. Woo!
I think you meant to say squirts beer.
Squirts. Yeah.
Imagine if human anatomy could do that, right? I always think about like the X-Men and like they all have these fantastical powers, right? Storm can, she's in charge of the weather patterns, and Cyclops can shoot these massive eye laser beams out of his face, right? But like that there are mutants out there who just have like the weirdest abilities. Like, what
Mhm.
if there was a woman who squirt beer out of her hoo-ha?
But that would, it would probably be a mutant power. Whether or not it was useful to the X-Men depends. I mean, you could be a spy maybe, and try and seduce a guy, get him drunk, to get information out of him. Oh my
It's
goodness.
true. It's true. You
But
totally do that.
this is reminding me of these like old Scottish guy characters that I created with a friend of mine, Abel, who's also an improviser. We just one night were at a somebody's birthday party, and we started talking in these these Scottish accents, as if we were these like old guys, and our wives had died, and would be like, "Oh, it's terrible, mate. But you got to shower in the whiskey. That's what real men do," and stuff like that. But you don't drink the Baileys. That's the woman's drink.
The Baileys? Well, it is Irish, so.
So anyway, that's me attempting to do a Scottish accent. Thank you very much. A good night.
A long time ago, I could do a Scottish accent. I have not been to Scotland in quite a few years, and I feel embarrassed to practice one right here.
I'm sure I did not do a good job of it. It's been a while since I've tried it.
Way better than I would have.
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
I'm better at Aussie, mate. Gotta do some Aussie.
Well,
Australia.
it's where you're from.
Hmm?
It's where you're from.
That's but I still do a thicker accent when I put it on.
Growing up in Western Pennsylvanians have a very specific way of speaking. It's not an accent per se. I mean, there is a little bit of a twinge to it, but I have beaten the vast majority of that out of my system, and I can't access it. I can't even hear it in my head to try and replicate it. So
I remember this time where I was playing with accents with my kids, and then I think it was my son who was like, "Do you want a spot of tea? You want a spot of tea, mate?" Or something like that, like doing a British accent. I'm like, where did you come up with this?
what kind of do your kids have just like straight American accents? Or
No,
is it
I don't know how I would describe them, because like I'm around them all the time, so I'd have to hear from somebody else how they perceive their accents. Because I don't have really any perception of what their accent is, since I'm around them all the time. There was a time where there was some words that at least one of them was pronouncing like a Filipino, because we had a Filipino maid who was looking after them for a decent amount of time. So that was interesting. But that's gone now. All right, Daniel has one more comment here before we move on to the next question. So Charles Xavier is still looking for that mutant, Mike. When he finds him, he's going to call him Booze Hounds. You can imagine if it's like a guy with that power shooting it out of his penis.
Booze Hound. What a great name for that weird mutant ability. I love that. Booze Hound.
I swear.
That's exactly what they would be called too. If I ever put that into a comic book,
you're pinching that name.
I will give you credit.
All right. Well, look, Daniel's added another comment around this. So, There's an Australian band called 12 Foot Ninja, and in the intro to one of their music videos, they pretend to be bogans and lay the accents on thick. That's how you do it. That's how you
Bogan.
draw an audience. A bogan is like Australia's version of a redneck. That's the simple version of it. They, go around wearing a singlet and stubby shorts for the guys, UGG boots for. So it is like I know in other countries, UGG boots is seen as this luxury good item, but in Australia, UGG boots are worn by bogans. It's not like something that is.
Bogan is Australian and New Zealand slang for a person considered unrefined or unsophisticated,
There you go.
often associated with the working class background. The term can be pejorative or self-deprecating, depending on the context, and can be used to describe someone's speech, clothing, attitude, or behavior. And then we have some photos.
Please do share. It's like, okay, yeah, that's a flannel rather than the singlet type. Okay. Then you have the Australian, the female version is probably more the Sheila rather than bogan. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, the beanie can sometimes be part of the outfit.
Yeah, so and it just keeps going on and on and on.
Yep, there you go. You're learning a whole bunch of things tonight, Mike.
Oh, and there's kind of a more female.
It looks like one of them might be wearing the Australian flag.
They all are.
So, okay, they all are. So, yeah, like I said, very much the Australian version of an American redneck. Yeah.
Interesting.
Drape themselves in the flag like redneck Americans might.
Daniel, originally you said bogan, and my mind went to the movie Labyrinth with all like the little gremlins or trolls.
That's very different. Yeah. All right. Next question from ChatGPT is what role do you think trauma plays in shaping the type of man someone becomes, in the male archetype? Do you think that it plays? I think it's probably especially for the alpha type or the ones who want to be the alpha type.
Depends on the trauma. I mean, without going into specifics, there's someone fairly close to me that has had incredible trauma in terms of war. And they have, I'm not going to say that they value the alpha stereotype, but there's, let's just say that they themselves are, what's his bucket from Parks and Rec?
I haven't seen that show either.
I
know there's so many things that I
Daniel would know. Daniel would know. I can't think of his name. Anyway,
one of them from Parks and Rec.
Yeah, one of the main characters. I can't.
Well, like the other male archetypes that we kind of went through the definitions of from ChatGPT or ChatGPT's explanations of, a lot of them are more grounded, I guess, in their characteristics. So it would be harder to kind of go into those kinds of subsets if it was trauma that was influencing them, I think. Especially like that hardworking, modest, emotionally complex, everyman Delta male. I mean, maybe you could a little bit if you had this the upbringing where you kind of have to learn to take care of your own self because you're emotionally deprived in a way. That I guess that's kind of that could be a trauma to lead to that kind of
I think
type.
whoever you are disposed to being, I think trauma just heightens that.
Yeah.
Like if you're more gamma, then trauma would probably make you more gamma.
Mhm.
Or it would have the opposite effects. Like so there's 6
Yeah.
archetypes, right?
Yeah.
And just like on a color wheel, I would assume that one of those archetypes is the opposite of another one. So it might bounce you back to the opposite side, whatever that opposite is.
Ooh, we could probably figure it out. Like alpha and beta seem to be the opposites because they're the ones that are most commonly talked about.
Yeah.
I think sigma and omega might be too similar because they're the more independent types.
Remind me, what is Omega again?
Omega is rebellious outsider, rejects social
Oh,
structures entirely,
yeah.
often indifferent to success or power. So that's also an independent-ish one. Whereas the delta males, they're everyman, hardworking, modest, emotionally complex, and gamma male is intelligent, introspective, and emotionally sensitive.
I would
So I feel
say
like,
Omega and Delta, they sound opposites of each other.
yeah, I would think so. And gamma and sigma kind of, yeah, yeah, probably, because sigma doesn't talk about like the emotional sides of things. It's more mysterious, self-reliant, and quietly confident. That seems to be opposite of emotionally sensitive, introspective, and intelligent. Maybe, yeah. No.
So yeah, I think trauma would push it one of 2 ways: just amplify or regress.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think you could have the same kind of trauma that would push you into either the alpha or beta type. Like my ex-husband, I talked about this a little bit last week. My ex-husband identified as a beta and but wanted to be an alpha, but just didn't feel like he was capable of being there. And so uh, and a lot of that came from his own like personal insecurities of feeling like women weren't attracted to him until like much later on, and that was a traumatic experience for him, um, and so that is what kind of influenced him to become who he became. I don't think he went about things the right way. He could have dealt with things a lot more healthy, or healthier. But yeah, it's tricky. And
You just said something that made me think of there are natural born alphas, and there are people who are trying to become alphas.
Mhm.
And again, I'm just thinking out loud, so this might be inaccurate, but I'm thinking people who are just naturally born alphas, that's just who they are, that's how they've always been. I'm going to go out on a limb and say they are wonderful people.
Oh yeah,
The people who are trying to
oh
be
yeah,
alphas are the assholes of the world.
I agree. Yeah, because like, well, I'll reread the description of the alpha male that we had: confident, dominant leader type, charismatic, assertive, often seen as the pack's front man, thrives on status and control in social or professional settings. There is nothing in that necessarily implies that they have to be toxic and
Right.
mean to women, or mean in general, and putting people down. Control does not necessarily mean in that kind of I'm controlling other people. It
Right.
can just mean like I can control my own emotions, so I'm not reactive, right?
Right.
There's self-control versus trying to control other people. Very
Or
distinct.
also, control could also mean good managerial uh,
Mm-hmm.
uh, proclivities.
Leadership
Yes.
qualities.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yes. Someone who can control a situation
Hmm.
without it exploding into something terrible.
Yeah. If that type of alpha was the one that was kind of held up on a pedestal as, this is what you could aspire to be, rather than the toxic side of it, I could definitely see that being as a more healthy way to kind of look at things. But it seems like the subculture that talks about these terms on the internet are more in the leading into the toxic side of the terms. So unfortunately, but yeah, I agree with you in terms of the the ones who are born alpha, quote unquote, are probably less likely the toxic type.
Come on, guys.
Yeah. But anyway, like I was like, so I brought up the trauma of my ex-husband not being seen as attractive to women. Like I don't want to discount that is a traumatic experience for a lot of guys, and I think that's the thing that's kind of driving a lot of what the guys that lead into that toxic alpha type that want to be into that. Um, of what's going on today, and they just need to find healthier ways to deal with that rather than trying to become something that makes things worse.
I mean, yes. Obviously. Like I'm reminded of, oh geez, there have been so many school shootings and all kinds of shootings that it's hard to keep track of them all. So I don't know if you remember this one, but it was from, I don't know, maybe like 10 years ago, something like that. There was a sophomore in college, this guy who, and when you described the term incel, involuntarily celibate,
Yeah.
this is the person I immediately thought of when you told me that definition. By his own account on social media, he's a good-looking guy who's very charismatic and easygoing, whatever, right? But even as a sophomore in college, he hadn't had sex yet. He was still a virgin, and he was so mad about this that no one wanted to sleep with him. So he wrote out a hit list of girls at his college that he was going to take out and murder. But I guess like the cops found the list, or somehow somebody found the list, and he was arrested and removed from that situation. But that was the whole thing of like, people don't owe you anything.
Yeah.
People don't.
Yeah.
Like having, like, and specifically getting laid, losing your virginity, it is such a personal thing. And not just losing your virginity, but having sex is such a personal thing to so many people. And even if you don't view it that way, you have to understand that most people do.
Yeah.
But therein lies the issue, is that this kid couldn't see that. He couldn't understand that. He refused to accept that. And he fell back on his, I don't even know what it is I'm trying to say anymore. Like he reverted to that insular, selfish, motivative desire, and he couldn't deal. And so, I mean, yeah, when you say like we need to get people to wake up and to understand the situation and stop making it about yourself. Yeah, obviously.
but how, right?
How?
It's like
Yeah.
yeah, I don't feel like there has been much in terms of how we kind of find a solution for this. I don't know, I wonder if having more socio-emotional learning in schools to develop empathy for other people would help, rather than, because a lot of this kind of idea around this stuff comes through what these kids consume through social media and on the internet and that sort of thing, and these kinds of ideas. So we need to have something that combats that kind of these ideas that they're getting from the internet, like from a younger age, right? And teaching more about consent and empathy and
we
stuff.
don't have a Department of Education anymore, so
yeah, I'm not saying it's going to happen here.
United States needs to burn itself down so that we can be good.
I mean, my son did get some socio-emotional learning at his school, but part of that was because he was diagnosed autistic from a young age, and so he got like extra support around that sort of thing. And I think that would be more useful across the board, not just for autistic kids, because it's not just autistic kids that need it.
You're also in California, so I feel like that's something the Board of Education there would.
Yes, for sure. It's definitely more, it's probably a lot more pervasive here. All right, Daniel's got a bunch of comments for us around these topics. So let's see. Okay. Oh my God. Okay, he laughed at, oh no, this is somebody else. Somebody else has joined. Veritas. Veritas was laughing at something and then said, I don't think trauma plays any role in determining if someone is an alpha or beta or sigma. Interesting. And Veritas agrees with the natural born sentiment that you brought up. Mike, here you go. And Daniel's comment is...
Remind me, what was my natural born sentiment?
About the alphas, some of them are naturally born that way, and the ones that try to...
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I was like, wait, I said something that somebody connected with? What?
Yes. This is what happens when I don't bring up the chats for a while. Also, welcome, Veritas. Thank you for joining us. I think you're a new viewer unless you've watched previously and not commented in the past. So thank you so much for joining and commenting with us. Daniel says, depends on the degree of trauma, but that's humans in general, man or woman. For males, certain traumas they'll internalize so they don't look weak or less masculine to others and seem vulnerable. For sure. Yeah, I think there's because that's the perception of what men are supposed to be like in the world, right? With, you know, don't look weak, don't be less masculine, whatever that means to the individual. And Veritas says, correct, you can't be something you're not. Many people have false notions of what an alpha is. Yeah. That's exactly what we were discussing. If it's the type that we were saying, the natural born type, that's fine. But if it's the toxic type, that's not. It shouldn't be like that.
The poser type.
The poser type, yeah, the poser alpha, which is probably the kind of alpha that my ex-husband wanted to be. I'm dominant. I want to be dominant. I want to control you. Fuck you. All right. So Veritas says it's not trauma, it's just the reality for most guys. Oh, the part of where they're just rejected by a bunch of women. I think it depends. Like, it depends on how they handle the rejection. For some guys, it may not be traumatic, but for other guys, for sure, especially the ones that turn into incels.
Look at the example of the guy that I just was talking about from the news. Like, he didn't get laid in his 22 years of life, or however old he was when he was a sophomore in college. But like, each rejection kept like piling up and piling up and piling up until like that in and of itself. Because again, like, what is trauma? Trauma can, you know, getting a paper cut is traumatic. So like, there's degrees of trauma.
Definitely degrees of trauma, and and there's different ways that people handle it as well. Some people do become more insular and revengeful about things versus, using it as a learning experience that they can grow from, which is how I've dealt with my trauma. Okay, how can I become a better person after this traumatic experience that I've
Some
had?
of that also needs to be learned too, because again, for me growing up, I was the kind of person that the way that I dealt with trauma was I became very insular, and I would just stew and stew and stew about every conceivable possible outcome. And especially when I was younger, my inner thoughts always went to either self-harm or Columbine type acts of
Yeah,
terrorism, right?
yeah,
And they were all like fantasy based situations in my mind. But I'm, as the world has shown us, I was not the only person having those thoughts.
no,
So,
yeah.
like,
I mean,
how
the
do we-
people that go out and do those mass shootings, I couldn't imagine that anyone who does not have any trauma would go and do that. Like, that comes from somewhere, right?
yeah.
And there might be different types of traumas that led to it, and this is just how they handled it and what it ended up
But
as.
the other side of the coin of that is that I do think that it needs to be a learned trait. It needs to be instilled in people how to deal with that,
Yes,
and we're
yeah,
not doing that.
that's absolutely something that probably should be taught in schools, in households, but like probably more schools, because you can have an abusive household that you grow up in, right?
Yeah.
And you're not going to learn how to deal with that trauma in your home if you're experiencing trauma in your home, right?
Right.
So it needs to be learned from somewhere. So probably schools is the best way to find that.
Yeah.
Especially when you're hiding that trauma and it's not like easily identifiable by teachers, that they're not, might not be able to tell that something is going on, so they're not going to call CPS for you. So having those kinds of skills taught in school would be probably really valuable, for sure.
Totally would.
All right, Veritas also says it's gotten worse with hypergamy. Is that how it's pronounced? I haven't seen this word before.
Sounds appropriate.
And women chasing Chad and shitting on the average guys. Look, depends on the woman. I go for the average guy.
Hypergamy refers to the practice of marrying or dating someone of a higher social status than oneself. Ooh, look at you, Veritas, giving us
a term
high
that we're learning.
fluid.
We're learning stuff today.
It's often associated with women, particularly in societies with traditional gender roles where marriage was more about social and economic advancement than love. Here's a more detailed breakdown. And then it goes on. Social status, gender roles, motivation, examples, historical context, global trends. So interesting.
So marrying above your social status.
Well, I dated with hypergamy a little bit. Or rather, what's the opposite of hypergamy? When you're like doing the opposite?
I feel like I'm more the opposite of that.
There was a woman who was slumming with me, and her name shall be hidden. She's not a socialite, but she's kind of a socialite. She's a little bit of an influencer before influencers were influencers. And she comes from let's just say a family of pedigree. She was slumming it with this asshole. And I had no complaints.
Wait, but does that mean that you're the one who is participating in hypergamy?
Oh, I guess I would. Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah,
because she was above your social status.
She was, yes.
Yeah. So she was the one that was doing the opposite. That's
Yes.
the thing. Like, there has to be an opposite version of it after that, right?
Yeah. Wait, is hypergamy going up, or is it often refers to the practice of marrying or dating someone of a higher social status than oneself?
Yeah. So there you go. Cool. I I feel like the guys that I've dated have generally been more, they're the ones that are participating in hypergamy. At least that's how they say it to me. Like, there's like, oh, you're too good for me. Like, I don't deserve you. Like, that's the kind of things that the guys I've dated have said to me. I was like, dude, I see you as at my level. But if you see yourself that way, then that's not on me. That's your problem.
Maybe this is the wrong time to say this, but that sounds like an excuse.
Yeah, there's that side of it too. But no, I mean, it's not that they didn't want to be with me. It's just that they kept putting me on a pedestal and thought that was really great. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
So then Daniel adds, but you know you love Chads, Veritas. Chads are the chattiest.
What?
Chads are the chattiest. Chads are the more of the dude bro kinds. Right, like the ones that the women supposedly go for. But seriously, got into a heated argument with some dude on here earlier, spreading misinformation about autism, and he was bragging about being a Chad. There's guys that actually identify themselves as Chads. It's not just guys that are accusing other people of being Chads. Oh my goodness, I had no idea that was a thing. I'm so curious. I feel like this. I'm even more curious about what's going on in the chat than bringing up the questions that are still to come now. Right, Veritas says men don't need more female indoctrination, counseling, or talking about their feelings. What are your thoughts on this, Mike?
Vehemently disagree, Veritas. I feel like men have everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses, right? I feel like as a mass generalization, men are physically stronger than women. Women are emotionally stronger than men. Mass generalization, but I think hopefully we can all see those trends in both genders, and I think that through cultural influences, men have been taught either through culture, society, or other types of influences that you can't let that out. My father was one of those. My father very rarely ever showed emotion until later in life, and it was just one of those things that, like, we don't, in my family at least, like, if you're going through something, you keep that shit to yourself. And it wasn't until I moved out of the house and moved to Europe and then moved back to the States and went to college in Philly and had multiple, not just gay roommates, but a wide range of LGBTQIA roommates, living in Philly and being exposed to people of color and, just having all of those experiences over time. And also having dated therapists in the past.
I didn't know that.
Well, it's therapist. There was one word. But as mass generalizations, I do feel like men have been taught to bottle it up. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by female indoctrination.
Yeah, that's the term I kind of have a bit of.
Talking about their feelings. I think we do. I think we need to get it out, because I think that women deal with emotional situations way better than men do. And I don't know why that is, but it is.
I honestly think it's a societal kind of influence around it. I don't think it's innate in gender differences in terms of biology. I don't think it is. I think it's based on society, because I'm pretty sure that there are other cultures around the world where it's not, that way. There are matriarchal societies, for example. So I would imagine, like, I'm not saying that I've had any kind of experience like researching this kind of thing, but I feel like there must be other societies where that's not actually as common as what it seems to be here in the United States, right? But yeah, so I take issue with the term female indoctrination, because there are a lot of men who themselves are counselors or therapists who, have worked towards helping other men, deal with these kinds of
Dominica,
things.
they themselves have been female indoctrinated.
Jeez, oh my God. But like, philosophy and psychology came from men, right? It wasn't women who came up with these theories initially, I feel like.
But also, Veritas, I don't say that the way that I just said that. I don't wish to use that terminology as a mocking or poking the bear against you. I was just making a joke towards Dominica. But I don't want you. I hope that you don't feel attacked that I'm using that phrase in that way.
All right, next comment, Veritas continues. Men need to be valued in society and have something like a woman or children worth participating in society for. Not necessarily, but yes, I do feel like a lot of men find a lot of value out of living for their wife or children, or I mean, it's been my experience that when I've dated guys who have started out not really very confident, when they were with me, it led to them, having or developing more self-esteem and having, bigger goals and becoming more confident. So I do think that feeling valued by a partner does help with that. But I think that there are also other ways, and it's something, yes, to feel worth participating in society for. So it doesn't necessarily need to be women or children. It could be like, a philosophy that they live for, or
also passion.
Passion.
Like, that's one of the things about as an artist that you quickly start to realize is the self-satisfaction out of creation.
And then the other thing is that when you are participating in that kind of way, like you have a hobby or something that you're passionate about and you're working towards that in itself can drive attraction. Like, a woman can be attracted to the fact that you're passionate about this thing, and then they want to be with you, right? That's how it's been for me. I'm like, oh, I see this guy is really into this thing, and now I want to be with it. But if a guy doesn't have that thing already that they're working towards, or their own goals, then it's harder to be attracted to
sharing in commonality.
Yeah. And yes, Veritas does say that he is. I'm assuming that he's a he.
Welcome.
Given the comments that have come up. So yeah, thank you. Veritas also says some of this was in regards to your conversation, so it might not make as much sense without the context. I feel like we kind of figured out what you were talking about. Yeah.
We caught it up. Also, Dominica, you're so much better at making those like connections than I am. What is this?
What's that? So I remember what we talked about.
Yeah, I have improviser brain.
But there have been times where it's a chat comment has come up and I'm like, what was that about? And then you or Sharad has mentioned what it's actually been about. So sometimes that's the opposite. So Veritas says men's lives have always been trauma, silent, internal, accepting of their role in the universe, but at least they were appreciated for it and not criticized. Yeah, I've heard that like that criticism part is in itself can be a traumatic experience for men. Is like they're very sensitive to any perceived criticism. My ex-husband was very much like, even when I wasn't trying to criticize him, I was saying what I thought was a neutral comment, he would take as criticism, and I'm like, wow, this is this is something. I'm like, I don't know how to deal with that.
It's hard to be objective. It's hard to be objective because when you're in pursuit of like self-improvement, you have to be open to criticism, as constructive as it may be. But I mean, sometimes just Veritas, for context, I have a television show. I live here in New York City. I have a television show where we do live comedy every other Wednesday. And we just had a show last night, and after the show, someone gave me the note. One of my cast members gave me a particular note that didn't sit well in my ear, even though I knew that they were right. It didn't sit well with me, and so like all day today, I've been stewing over this. I'm not going to say exactly what it was,
That's
but
fair.
I've been stewing over it, and just been like, why would you leave that alone? And then the other side of me goes, no, they're right. I should not be pushing against this. And it's just that like,
But it can take some time to get over that initial defensiveness reaction that you have to that kind of criticism before you are able to process what was said and then take it in and on board of like, oh yeah, I could adapt to that comment instead, and that's very difficult thing for anyone to do. I don't think this is just a problem that men deal with. I think there's women also go through this sort of thing because we've on prior streams I've talked about how my defensiveness kind of got in the way of things, and I need to learn to hold back on my defensiveness when somebody says something that I take as an attack, right? So I feel like that's, again, across the board human sort of experience. And I think all people can benefit from having someone that they can trust to talk about these experiences without fear of being criticized for them. And I do understand that is harder for men to do because and there are a lot of men who do criticize so there are a lot of women who criticize men for expressing their emotions, but I mean, obviously it's not all women. I'm not someone like that. I really appreciate men who open up to me about their experiences and feelings. I think that's one of the reasons why I have so many male friends. But I've definitely seen a lot of people I don't know posting about their experiences on the internet where women have, will berate men for them expressing their emotions, and that causes them to shut down and never want to open up to a partner in the future. So I think there just needs to be a lot more understanding across the board, and finding those safe places and safe people that you can open up to, regardless of what your gender is.
I'm going to say something that I don't, and again, I'm thinking this in real time, but to Veritas's point, and I'm going to expand on this idea a little bit. Dominica, you tell me what you think of this.
Mm-hmm.
Women have been criticized for millennia, but it seems like this idea of women have been criticized for being women for millennia, but the idea of men being criticized for being men seems to be a relatively new idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's just my perception.
No, because patriarchy or patriarchal societies have been so commonplace for so long that I don't think that it's been talked about to this kind of extent. Even like in the 90s, I don't think it was talked about like this.
Mm-mm. No.
Yeah.
I do remember watching the movie. Speaking of 90s, and I remember watching the movie LA Confidential. Do you remember that movie? Did you ever see it?
I have seen it, but it's been quite a number of years. So
it takes place in the 1950s. It's when it takes place. The movie came out in the late 90s. Great movie, phenomenal. But there's my view of the 1950s was always that Ozzie and Harriet, Father Knows Best, Donna Reed, Dennis the Menace, My Three Sons, I Love Lucy, like all that stuff, right? I could keep going on, going and going and going. So that was always my view of what the 1950s was like. Just, oh, everyone is so wholesome and, all that stuff, right? But then this movie showed a very graphic scene of a drunk man beating his wife.
Mm.
And Russell Crowe as a police officer, grizzled, and he happens to be driving by, or maybe he was scoping out the place. I can't remember. Anyway, he gets out of his car and he beats this dude's ass. He's just like, and he's pummels him to a piece of pulp, right? And that depiction shattered what my thought of what the 1950s was like. Because again, like I always thought it was just that classic Leave It to Beaver, happy, playful, wholesome. Everyone lives in every town, USA. And that's
Pleasantville.
yes, clearly not how it was. So there was a reason for me bringing that up. Kind of tying it in with what you were talking about. And
I mentioned the 90s of how we didn't even talk about or we didn't disparage men or criticize men.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Today, or like back in the 90s as it happens today. I'm tired.
I still don't remember my point, but thanks.
Okay.
Thanks for bringing it back.
That's what, yeah. So no, that's an interesting point, and so that could be where a lot of this problem comes from, because there is no historical context for men dealing with that kind of criticism.
Right.
Yeah. Especially from women, right? I think that it's more understood or accepted if it's men criticizing other men compared to women criticizing men.
Well, it becomes insider baseball, right? As a Mormon, I don't like it when non-Mormons, poke fun at other Mormons. But as a Mormon, I can make fun of another Mormon.
That's fair. Yeah, I don't have a problem with non-Australians poking fun of Australians. Case in point, Kate McKinnon in Rough Night played an Australian lady with an Australian accent. Loved the character. So, different contexts is fine, I guess. I adored her in that. Anyway, that's interesting. I feel like this is something I want to think more deeply about, that I can't relate it because this is new to me, that I'm like, I need to have some time to dwell on this. So I'm gonna
we're just scratching the surface.
I know.
We are not professionals in mental health
at all. So entertainment purposes only. Do not take our advice necessarily. If you do not sue us for it.
We're just two schmucks on the internet. What do we know?
We are. There is so many chat comments. I'm going to try and bring them all up before we finish. So Veritas adds this a notion of needing help, counseling, talking about feelings. This is an extremely gynocentric view, and it simply doesn't work for men. Disagree. There are a lot of men that it does work for. There's a lot of men that feel like that is pointless, and if you're going into it with the attitude that it's not going to be helpful, of course it's not going to be helpful. But I don't think it should be discounted as not useful for all men.
Seconded.
Yeah. And not all women, obviously. I think that was what the female indoctrination stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's that sentiment is applied across the board. Not all blanks, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not all Hulks are lose control of their emotions.
This is why we're trying to get rid of the whole idea of male archetypes. It's humans have experiences, and you really shouldn't be generalizing in any kind of fashion whatsoever, because people will experience things in different ways. So Veritas says, men will have sex with women they won't date, but women typically won't have sex with men they won't date. Depends on the woman. I'm going to bring up Daniel's comment because he responded to that. So yeah, not necessarily Veritas, nature versus nurture. A lot of guys are assholes because of the lack of the nurture part and having to learn in nature. It perpetuates the stereotypes. Men can't show emotion. Oh, that was from one of the earlier comments. Yeah, but back to there are plenty of women who are fine with, non-committal sex, for sure.
It's
I am not. I mean, I guess I kind of have, but I wanted to, do the dating part. But nowadays, I wouldn't have sex with somebody that. I mean, I need to have more sure of looking for the commitment kind of thing. That's what I want, but historically, that's not been the case in the past. And there are definitely women who are more free with their bodies than what I am.
I do think there is a I think there's some truth to this. Yeah, I think there's some truth to it. Don't you think?
Yeah, but like I said, you can't generalize with all women being like that. Right. But it is probably more common for women to not want to have sex with men unless they're dating.
Right.
But I don't have the statistics or anything around that particular topic. And personally, I find it frustrating that men will have sex with women that they don't want to date, because in the past, this is something that I haven't talked to very many people about this. Maybe I've talked about it on the stream before. I don't remember. But in the past, I have probably been, I do have a history of being sexually intimate with men who didn't want to date me. And it led to me feeling used, and I personally wasn't worth as much if men were only interested in sleeping with me but weren't interested in dating me. It made me feel like I had less value of a woman if a guy was only interested in sex with me. So that's something that, if you want Veritas, the ladies' perspective on that side of things, that is a big problem that I have had with it, and why I have flipped to only being interested in having sex with a man who I am dating and want to have a long-term relationship with, because of that experience of feeling like I'm worth less if a guy does not want to commit to me.
Fair.
Yeah.
Totally fair.
All right. There's so many comments. We'll see how far we can go up. Like a 10 guy will have sex with a 7 or a 6 or a 5, but won't give them commitment. So some of those women will chase relationship with guys who won't give it, while ignoring guys on their level. Yeah, I would rather date a guy on my level than a guy who only wants to sleep with me and not give me commitment. And I won't attempt to label myself a number. I think that how I'm perceived by men on the number kind of scale probably depends on the guy.
I don't think anybody wants to know their own number.
No. Well, but I think it depends on the guy as well. Like, some guys might see me as a 10, I don't know, but other guys might see me as a 1. So it really depends on how other people perceive you.
The real question is, how does the Hulk see you?
Hulk, how do you see me? Do you rank me any? Oh. I'm a 5.
Oh, smash that.
Daniel will rank me as a 10. He flirts with me all the time. Veritas says, I don't believe women are emotionally stronger than men, more compassionate, more empathy, more sympathy, and more of a nurturing mentality. But I find women more emotionally fragile. I think it depends. I think this is another one where it depends. There are a lot of men who are so emotionally fragile that they'll go and attack everyone around them just because they feel hurt by something that was said to them because they can't take criticism. Like we were talking about the, men not being able to handle criticism. What do men do when they when they are criticized? Do they handle their emotions? Sometimes not very well.
I mean, that's kind of the best way to start a fight. If you walk into a bar in the middle of Mississippi, and again, this is general mass generalization, but walk into a bar in Nowheresville in the middle of Mississippi and call someone, a race. What am I trying to say?
Racial slur.
Drop a slur, gendering them.
Yeah.
And then they can't. And again, this is just a stereotype.
Like I said, I'm not generalizing about all men. I'm just saying, like, there are a lot of examples of that kind of thing happening. So, and a lot of women who are emotionally strong. I feel like I've had to be. So, yeah, I've been dealt a lot of stuff in my life to handle a lot. So more prone to swings, more irrational breakdowns. Again, depends on everything. A lot of things. Men's stoicism and ability to control their emotions and lean more towards logic than feelings takes great emotional strength. Okay, so I have my most recent ex was very much this kind of way, but I think it harmed him more than it helped him, because it was the thing that pushed me away from him in some ways, and I was interested more in what was going on beneath that. And I personally think it takes more strength to be emotionally vulnerable than it does to be stoic. What are your thoughts on that, Mike? Particularly for men, just because of the way that society says that you should be.
I agree with both. Maybe this is something that I'm going to regret saying tomorrow, but I kind of agree with both points of view. Because let's just go back to the classic bar fight example, right? Somebody smashes you in the face with a beer bottle. It takes an incredible amount of control
to not react to that.
Not react.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right?
So again, context matters.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I don't know if we're going to be able to get through all of the chat comments. This
is
great though.
I haven't looked.
It's great though. Like just because like we have been trying to stick to 2 hours, but if you're fine with going
I can go over a little bit.
Try and go. So don't take offense, but the world has pushed the female perspective on emotions onto men without recognizing that men and women are different. I understand how it makes sense to you, but in reality, I don't believe it does. Yeah, you're entitled to your own perspective on things, but like I said, I don't think this is something that can be generalized in such a way. I think that it's a spectrum. Some guys are more prone to things that other guys aren't.
Can you go back to the previous comment?
The first part of it?
Yeah, first part. So, Veritas, where you say the world pushing the female perspective on emotions onto men, I don't see that as pushing a female perspective. I see that more as we are starting to understand more. Um, uh, Maybe we're in agreement that maybe women are more in touch with their feelings, or maybe it's more socially acceptable
Yeah,
for women to be more in touch with their feelings.
I agree with that.
And I think with the advent of social media, we can have these conversations more easily than we did in the 90s or prior. Um, and so I think these conversations are more accessible. And because of that, I do think that we're kind of starting to wake up a little bit and have these understandings. Now, let me say that with the caveat, this is my get out of jail free card. Um, Maybe these conversations are amounting to nothing. Maybe none of this is true. But I do think that we are
I I was just going to say, I think it's impactful for some men, even if it's not impactful for all men. I follow a lot
yeah,
of guys on social media that do, are more in touch with their emotions and share their kind of experiences, trying to, you know, delegitimize the manosphere kind of commentary and stuff. And I see them as like they have healthy relationships with their partners, and I think that's what helps them to have those healthy relationships, is because they lean into at least wanting to understand the female perspective, even if they might not necessarily handle things the same way.
right.
Yeah. So I think that's more where it's useful, even if you want to stay that like stoic kind of personality, it's still beneficial to lean into and understand the female experience so that you can support her in her experience and feel like and so she can feel more connected to you because you're willing to listen to her without trying to fix her. Yeah. Because
I'm
that's
sorry.
the thing. Like,
All women need to be fixed. No.
sometimes
Is
you can
that not
fix
what this whole thing is about?
sometimes you can fix us just by listening to us and not even doing anything. That's all that needs to be fixed, is like, just let us talk and then we'll figure things out on our own, and then we're like, oh, okay, I'm good now.
Sorry, I'm not trying to be distracted. My cat Brazos is chewing on another phone charging cord.
Oh
Buddy,
dear.
come
Oh dear.
on.
All right,
Yeah.
I will bring up the next
Sorry.
comment. I'm curious how old Veritas is as well, because I feel like that might give us a bit of extra context in this. So Veritas says, I feel bad because my text is way ahead of the conversation, so I'm not able to add context in response. So my statements are left for interpretation. Yeah, sorry about that. This is what happens when there's so much engaged comments in the chat. I do appreciate it.
This is the little mongrel chewing on phone cords.
Hi, Brazos.
Hey, buddy. You got fans. Veritas wants to say hi.
Daniel says, want to know a secret, Veritas? Some women are turned on by a guy who is able to make himself vulnerable in front of her. It's a sign of trust. Most women, be it a 10 or a 1, don't like emotional walls. Yeah. And I think that's why Daniel likes tuning in, because I'm one of those kinds of women.
But how does Daniel feel about you openly flirting on air?
Isn't that one of the reasons he keeps coming back?
Well, it's either that or for the cuteness that is Brazos.
Look, that's the reason that I got him to email me, surely. All right, Daniel also says, Dominica, can you please take out the trash? Ex-husband, what do you mean, you people? I love it, but also that's wrong, because my ex-husband was the person who was on top of taking out the trash all the time. That was his one thing that he was always on top of. It's once a week. Come on. But of course, he doesn't live with me anymore, so I'm the one who took out the trash tonight. Because it is trash day tomorrow.
I am the. Is that a gender role? Is that a stereotyped gender role?
Yeah, I think so, because you don't have to do it as frequently as some of the other cleaning household chores like dishes and laundry and so on.
I do the cooking, I do the cleaning, I do the trash.
Great.
And
You are a better man than the stereotype.
yeah.
There you go.
I won masculinity.
Timmy says hello. I don't know if you're still here, Timmy. I know you don't usually pop on for very long, but if you are still here, thank you for tuning. No, okay. The next comment is I can't stay long. I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
we missed Timmy because I'm so behind on the chat. All right, so Veritas clarifies what I meant by criticism was connected to the female indoctrination comment. I feel like the world is attempting to apply female views and sensibilities to men and criticizing them if they don't.
I think there's some truth to that. I think there's some truth to that, but I don't think that it's true in all circles.
Yeah. So yes, and I could potentially be one of the people who falls victim to that. Is like, dude, just open up for God's sakes, just tell me what you feel. To be fair, I probably fall. So I apologize, Veritas. I will try and be more understanding.
Hey, Dominique, keep that female indoctrination out of here.
Oh God, man. I understand that not all men want to kind of open up in that way, and it can be difficult for them to receive that kind of thing if they don't want to open up, and that's fair. Like, they shouldn't feel like they are pressured into doing something that they're not comfortable with.
Because here's the thing: if they're well adjusted, they don't need to open up.
Yeah, fair. But also, they might still do it anyway. Daniel says, but the rub is, Veritas, without a woman housing them for 9 months, all those manly men trying too hard to appear rugged wouldn't be here. It's not an attempt to emasculate men.
I think that's a great point. I don't think the motivation is to emasculate anyone. I think it's just to try and tap in. I mean, look back at World War II. PTSD back then was referred to as shell shock, and it was viewed as, if you had shell shock, it's just shake it off, right? Just shake it off. And then later on, we realized, oh no, this is like really terrible trauma. Some of the worst trauma a human being can experience. But shell shock, it was just viewed as and that's the thing. I feel like well-adjusted servicemen from the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s, they could shake that shell shock off. They could deal with the horrors of war very, very well. And it didn't affect them on a primal level. But then you had other people who couldn't shake the shell shock, PTSD. And I think it's that type of person, whatever the trauma is, and we all have trauma.
Right.
Like I said,
I mean, my dad's dad, I think, couldn't get past his PTSD, and that led to him unaliving himself. So, yeah.
But also, we're coming at this from the perspective of, we believe that we're well-adjusted.
What? You think I'm well-adjusted? I'm not well-adjusted. I'm trying to be well-adjusted, but I will not say that I am well-adjusted. Like, I started this live stream because I was not well-adjusted. I'm like, I need to be more vulnerable and open about things, because I was doing more of that, like, holding my emotions in and hiding how, like, I truly felt about my ex-partner, like when we were together, I held stuff back, and it was like I recognized that was not, that prevented me from having the kind of relationship that I wanted to have with him.
Sure.
So again, not well adjusted, but trying to learn how to be.
True.
Veritas says, yes, I feel like there's no debate about if talking about your feelings is actually good. It is simply accepted as being good. And I find that view to be a feminine viewpoint. Maybe more commonly, but I don't know. I'd have to look more historically about how things were historically. Like, that is something that I'd be curious about now. Like, because maybe, like, in what, romantic times where a lot of men were creative with their artistry and stuff, I feel like they might have been more adept at being sharing their feelings and stuff. Same with like ancient Greek times, maybe. Like, so I think it probably depends. Maybe something for us to research at another time. So Verita says, I don't think anybody is trying to emasculate anybody or like it's some agenda. I think it's mostly innocent. Yeah, I think it's probably more innocent too. But that doesn't mean it can't have unexpected, insidious consequences. Like I said, it can be traumatic for some people, and other people can just brush it off. Daniel says, Ozzy and Harriet had a lot of dark stuff going on behind the scenes. Most of the Nelson children were on some kind of substance. Okay, Mike, you need to give me the context to this, because I don't.
Do you know who Ozzy and Harriet are?
No.
So Ozzy and Harriet is one of the quintessential television shows from the 1950s.
Okay.
It was, post-war era. The Allies won the war. Was it 1945 is when World War II ended. We had a good economy in the late 40s. Going into the 50s, the economy was great. There was this idyllic sense of what society should be like, should act like. Men dress in suits and they go to the office, and on really great occasions they smoke a cigar. Everyone lives in the suburbs. Everyone has 2.5 children in a 3-bedroom house with a picket fence and walk-in closet. That was like the quintessential. Women stay at home and vacuum and play not bridge. What's that card? Cribbage. They get together on the weekends and play cribbage. There's that whole subset culture that very idyllic. And Ozzy and Harriet was a television show that so fucking quintessentially exuded that. So I think what Daniel is getting at is the reasons they were like playing into those, what we now know as stereotypes, is because they had so much dark shit going on in their lives. They had no option than to just play that part.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And if anyone wants any recommendations for improv shows that plays into that stereotypical 1950s life, they should watch Babe.
Yes.
And I Love Musicals, starring some of our friends from Portland.
Babe is really, truly incredible.
Such a great show.
It's a really great show.
Yeah. Okay. Daniel says, Pleasantville, when masturbation brought some color to Joan Allen's life, literally.
I still have never seen it.
You haven't? Oh, it's another Tobey Maguire film. I can't remember who the female love interest was. Reese? No, it wasn't. I don't think it was Reese Witherspoon, was it? It was somebody. All right. Veritas says, I will give an example. Male children who grow up without a father are far more prone to criminality and lack of emotional control. Those fake alphas are in large part a result of not having a real male role model and having to piece together what masculinity, strength, being an alpha is from media, etc. Yeah, I would agree with that. It's probably, I mean, that's what it seems to be common kind of accepted example experience stuff, right? Would you say, Mike?
Not so sure I agree with this one.
No?
Can you go back to
The first part?
first part? Male children who grow up without a father are more prone to criminality and lack of emotional control.
I don't know if necessarily criminality, but I do think that lack of having a male role model can be impactful or it can be traumatic. But it may also depend on what the impact of the mother is like too.
Are in large part a result of not having a real
Male role model.
Having to piece together what masculine. That okay, yeah, yep, that's fair. Yeah, I can get on board with that.
Daniel's helping us here. Disclaimer: the opinions of Dominic and Mike and Hulk are those of Dominic and Mike and Hulk only, and do not reflect the entirety of our network. Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. Yes, very much. Veritas says, in regards to sharing emotions not working for men, I was talking about the macro and the overall social impact on men than individuals.
I think we got there eventually. Yeah. I think we were focusing on the specifics, but yeah. I think through the course of conversation, I think we.
I prefer to focus on the specifics rather than being broad, because that's like I like nuance. That's what I'd like to dig into.
Take this the wrong way. Don't take this the wrong way. That's on you. But you already are broad.
Ooh. I'm a broad from the 1950s. I don't know what is this accent.
Well, apparently you're.
That's another southern twang. Yeah, that's cowboy. I do voices. Damn it, I do voices. Okay. Veritas says, I don't mean that women won't have sex without a relationship. They will, but a man will have sex without women that they would never have a relationship with. Women typically will only make themselves sexually available to men that they would date if they were willing to. Okay, there's probably some truth to that.
I was gonna say, I think there's some truth there.
Yeah, thinking back on the ones that I have slept with, knowing it was not going to lead to anything. Yeah, I think that's probably true for the most part. Yeah, maybe not all of them, because it was like situational kinds of things.
Well, sure, yeah.
But where I was like coerced into certain situations, but otherwise, the ones that I voluntarily chose of my own free will, yes, I would say that that's probably true. Daniel says, this comment has nothing to do with anything. I just wanted to be a smartass and give you one more thing to read. Mission accomplished. Yes, I should have. What I should have done was read it before I brought it up and just ignored it. That's what I should have done. Damn it, I missed my chance. Veritas says, I didn't mean to number people, but I needed a way to I don't have a problem with that. I know that it's a cultural kind of thing to give women numbers. Yeah. But I needed a way to communicate what I was saying. And I think everybody understands the concept behind a 1 to 10 attractive rating. Don't take anything I say too hard. Yeah, I didn't take anything like that. Like I said, those number rankings are all
what number would you give Hulk
without context or explanation? In Hulk form or as Bruce Banner?
Hulk is a completely different person.
I don't know. Like, I do not find him attractive at all. I think he's too muscly. He's green. Look, I'm just going to be very judgmental here. I'd probably maybe a 2.
Look at that ass. I mean, it is kind of flat.
Mike, it's plastic.
She didn't do it. She didn't mean it, buddy.
Anyway, Veritas, yeah, I wasn't like I understand the concepts. Like I watch a lot of movies. I know it's part of the kind of subculture thing. I don't take offense to these kinds of rankings. Again, I'm very much nuanced and like interested in different kinds of viewpoints and perspectives. I like to take everything in. And like I said, like people are going to rank people differently depending on what they're attracted to. All right. Veritas says, I need to smoke. I will be right back. He's probably back now. I don't know what he missed. You can always go back to what you missed later on if you're curious what we said. Hopefully you will have caught up with the chat by then. And I have filled in some blanks to some things that couldn't have been interpreted negatively. Let's see how, I don't know how much I have actually caught up. Wait, interpreted negatively could have.
No, I think that came across in, yeah, I think we got
that. Hulk says, me not responsible for anything, Mike say, me just here.
Wow, Hulk, you've been really working on your vocabulary, bud. Good for you. You can speak in almost like complete thoughts. Good job. Hulk, do good job.
Hulk smash. Now, Veritas adds, I also want to say some things I have said could easily be seen as inflammatory or confrontational, and you both have done a great job at not overreacting to it and have tried to understand.
We passed the test.
We did. We passed the test. We could have been very against the things. Well, I think we have had some good practice with this sort of thing, right? Like, I mean, my dad has kind of brought up some things in the past that he was concerned how we would react to.
Like who you are. Like that's just that. I feel like that's your MO, is that you're not as reactionary as many other people in our position or our community.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You try to understand and find the positivity in whatever comment or gesture people make. So I think that's definitely one of your strengths.
The thing is, because I think there's more value in trying to understand the different perspectives, because you're going to find more common ground that way rather than being reactionary and telling people that they're wrong. Mm-hmm. Right? When you do that, then you're just alienating that person, and then you don't get to have a more thoughtful and thought-provoking conversation when you're like that. Now, can I be reactionary in certain situations? If I do feel personally attacked, then I will be, but I haven't felt personally attacked by any of these comments.
No, we're just sharing ideas.
Yeah.
Just sharing ideas.
All right. I won't even deny some is meant to be somewhat pointed, but it is meant to give some pushback to encourage conversation and not to just tell you how wrong you are. Well, yeah, I appreciate that aspect as well. I didn't feel like you were intentionally trying to provoke reactionary reactions. Yeah, exactly. And Veritas adds, I think everybody can agree that we would like to fix some of the societal issues men may experience or the cause of. I just don't think women can fix men by trying to imbue feminine traits on them. And I agree to this to some extent. Like, I feel like a lot of these things are more on men to fix within their own groups, because you guys are going to it's easier for you to listen to perspectives of other men who have been through various experiences and learned from them, and that kind of teaching side of things, I think is better received by at least some men. Maybe not all, like maybe some men are fine to learn about this stuff from women, but I do think that there's a significant number of men who would get more value out of having that kind of relatable experience with other men.
Sorry, I think my cats are getting ready to fight.
Uh-oh.
I can't tell if they're like licking each other's faces or if they're getting ready to like
Attack each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit of both.
You need to grab one?
Well, that's the thing. I don't know. One of them like yelped, and I can't tell which one.
Oh.
They're like,
Meow!
and I'm like, wait, what? So they both seem to be pretty docile at the moment, so I think we're okay.
Mm.
Otherwise, they're gonna get hit with a big squishy ball.
Oh, it's back! It's back! That squishy ball that seems like you're holding a blue boob. The blue boob. The blue boob. Do you have any thoughts on this particular thing? Do you think it's something that's better for men to
fix some society issues may experience causative issues? I don't think women can fix men by trying to imbue feminine traits on them. I don't think anybody can really fix anyone. I think all of that change needs to come from the individual.
But I do understand where he's coming from, because there are a lot of women, in the same way that like women don't want to be, women don't want their men to fix them when they're sharing their problems. They just want to listen to them. I think that works vice versa as well. Men don't want to be fixed by their women, but we all have this kind of ingrained thing. Oh, you're experiencing this hurt. I want to help you, and I want to try and fix you. And I have this idea about how that can be done. But it's so, if you're not ready to listen to that kind of feedback, if you're not in that mindset of I want to change and I want the advice, then it's not going to be helpful, and it's just going to you're just going to get pushback regardless of what your gender is.
I think where I'm getting hung up is what is the definition of feminine traits? Without,
I think it's more, I'm assuming it's based on what Veritas has said previously, is just the talking about emotions kind of stuff rather than being stoic.
I mean, it's weird. I'm torn with this because some things, I do agree. Oh yeah, they are more generally feminine traits, and then other things are open to interpretation. So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about this. But yeah, I mean, no one can fix anyone without wanting to.
Yeah. Change has to come from within and based on your own kind of North Star path, right? There's like, what is it that I'm identifying in myself that I don't like, that I want to change, and then go out and do that.
But also, what's the converse of this? Like, what would be an example of situations
where you don't want to change, or you don't want to fix
it?
No.
What are examples of situations where women are getting imbued by masculine traits?
Oh yeah, that's in the workplace culture. There's that whole lean in culture for women who wanted to work their way up the corporate ladder back in the 90s.
Yeah.
Okay. And you had to like shut down you had to, but there's like different kinds of things. Like, so some women have to tone down their things to not be, because when they do imbue some of those masculine traits of being dominant or direct in things, then men can be taken aback by it sometimes. But definitely, I think, especially in the 90s, that workplace corporate culture if women wanted to, take those higher leadership positions, they had to take on more of those masculine traits, working more hours and is that masculine? I don't know. I mean, nurses probably not. You'd be working a lot of hours as well. But
so this brings up an interesting thing in my imagination of there are like social traits based on our surroundings, right? And I think a lot of them can be viewed as masculine. I think a lot of them can be viewed as feminine. I think a lot of them can be viewed as neuter.
Neuter?
Neuter, like
neutral.
the neutral.
But neuter sounds like you're lopping off somebody's genitals.
Well, in high school German, there was like the male words, female words, and the neuter words. So I guess I'm just transposing that here. So
okay.
German.
I had not heard it in that kind of context before.
So certain characteristics in personality
societally accepted to be feminine or masculine.
Well, yeah, so there's that, but there's also you see wide pockets of subsets that all kind of match or mirror each other. And I think it all stems from talk about the woman climbing the corporate ladder in a world full of men. There are social rules or ways of doing things or personality traits that have been perpetuated. If you want to climb the corporate ladder, you have to be like this, because men traditionally have always been in those positions of climbing that corporate ladder. And so the way you climb that corporate ladder is by following the herd, doing whatever the person before you did. How did they reach success? Well, they looked like this, they act like this, they spoke like this,
they dressed like this,
and they all happen to be of the same cultural background, ethnic background,
educational
background, stuff like that, right? So now when you get a newcomer who doesn't meet any of those prior criteria, the general idea is that you have to keep following the pattern of how it's done. Why? Well, that's just how it's always been done. Okay,
exactly.
but why?
Yeah.
But that's how it's always been done.
But has it really?
So it's those kinds of things that I challenge. And, as a Mormon missionary in Ireland, that's something that I challenge all the fucking time. Well, why are you Catholic? Because my parents were Catholic. Okay, well, why are your parents Catholic? Because my grandparents were Catholic. Okay, well, why? And so on and so on and so on and so on, right? So, like, why do we continue to do things the way that we do them? Because that's how they've always been done. And then when you introduce this new thing that is seemingly radical, kind of a radical idea, whether it's, asking men to take on a feminine perspective or characteristic trait, or open up in a certain way that historically has been associated with women, I understand why that is a scary or a foreign concept.
Yeah, it's going to be pushback.
Yeah, but also it to me, it challenges the idea: what is a feminine trait versus what is a masculine trait? And maybe I just answered my own question, because that's how it's always been done.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. That's how it is. It's the stereotype. I mean, this takes me back to high school when we learned about stereotypes, and some of them were gender stereotypes, and there were other. I think most of the stereotypes that we learned about were gender-based stereotypes rather than. I don't think they covered racial stereotypes. stereotypes. Thank goodness, maybe. But yeah, that was definitely something I learned about in high school. It was like, what are the stereotypes here?
Yeah.
Even back in the 90s. All right, moving on to the next comment because I
Moving
feel like
on.
we're getting behind again.
I know. So sorry. I'll keep my comments shorter.
I know. Veritas says, and of course, I'm mostly talking in generalities. There you go. And there's always exceptions. I just hate having to even preface that and hope it's just understood.
We got you.
I understand, but like also I hate generalities. Generalities. There we go. I got it eventually.
There you
go. It says, so Veritas adds, it's unfortunate that I have to talk in 200 character blurbs 5 minutes ahead of your live conversation. It doesn't allow me to get into the nuance necessary to explain my thoughts fully. I know, I'm sorry. How far behind are we, Leslie? This was 10:03. Oh God, that's like 20 minutes ago. Shoot. You guys have been understanding and open, and I just wish I could articulate it more thoroughly to make you understand where I'm coming from better. Okay, that's fair.
I think you're doing fine for what it's worth. I think you're doing fine.
Male children who grow up without a father in the home are statistically more prone to criminality and also experience abuse at a higher level than children with a father in the home.
See, I guess I didn't know that. I guess I didn't know
I
this.
haven't done any. Yeah, I haven't looked at research or statistics in this kind of area.
Interesting.
Maybe because they don't have, maybe they can be perceived as easier victims because they don't have a dad to protect them. Maybe.
What is
this? Like if they were experiencing abuse in childhood?
What is the statistic for male children growing up in a home without a mother? I wonder if that would be similar.
Good question. I don't know. These are questions to answer at a later time from people who are actually far more experienced
and
in looking up research than us.
In the morning on the
oh my goodness. Oh yeah. I'm going to try and stop spurging and putting you guys perpetually behind and just let you catch up. Let's see. Well, that was 14 minutes ago.
Okay. All right. So we're starting to play the catch-up game. Starting to get there.
Veritas says, the fixed comment was in regards to the notion of men need to talk about their feelings more, prescriptions for solving male issues. You brought up a great point about women wanting to be heard. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's where I kind of got with that. That's what it seemed to be how my understanding of that comment was. Veritas says, I have had issues with that from a male perspective and hearing a woman's problems and just attempting to logically solve them. This is how men typically work. Women spend more time trying to reconcile. Next part, reconcile their feelings than finding solutions to what's causing them. And yet we try to fix men's problems with with what's going on with them. Like, oh, just share your feelings. We'll help you fix them. Yeah. All right, Veritas says, I'm dumb on how women work. I know this. I understand the basic concepts, but I can't feel them. They aren't natural to me. They are illogical. I have found women seem to struggle to understand men the same way. There you go.
All I have to say to that is live long and prosper, my friend.
A great way to try and understand how women work, Veritas, is to lean into understanding their feelings and start feeling your own. I'm sorry, like that's the best advice I can have, and I know it's really hard to take in, but
well, also like I don't know. It's hard to give advice when advice has not been asked for, or maybe not even needed
Fair,
or
fair.
necessary.
Look, hear me trying to fix the problem. Am I a man? No. Yeah, no, that's
To that point, somebody told me something very recently that I thought was really funny. Um, oh, they refer to it as man explaining.
mansplaining. Or
My point
man.
exactly.
Okay. Oh, okay. Now I'm the mansplainer.
Yep. Mhm.
Okay.
When you call it man explaining,
Mm.
then people want to correct you
Yeah.
to mansplain, and you're like, "Aha, that you just proved my point."
Women can mansplain too. Yes,
Yeah,
yes, we can. It's
yeah,
a non-gendered term, even though it uses a
yeah.
gendered terminology.
I thought it was brilliant. Man explain.
God damn it! I'm leaning into. I'm being reactive in the ways that I'm expected to be reactive. But at least I can take the humor in it, and rather, oh,
Better.
what? How dare you do that to me?
I was just about to say, like, as a comedian, you better find the levity in it. But then all those times that people have said to me, like, as a comedian, you should just be able to take a joke. And I'm like, hey, what's the joke?
Yeah,
What's the joke?
sometimes there's not actually a joke there. You're just being a
Sometimes
dick.
you're an
Sometimes
asshole.
sometimes you're just being a dick.
Yep.
My dad has left his comment at I'll read the timestamp on this 22/22/25, which is like what? All twos except for the last number. So my dad says, I came in late. I've been quickly looking over the points, not hearing it all. Correct me if I am off point. We as humanity have been going through a learning curve. Darwinian, but not physical instead.
Wait, does he have another comment
Isn't
after that?
maybe.
Darwinian, but not
But
physical. Instead,
instead, you're probably right. Okay, you're right. Instead, I clicked on the. I thought I clicked on that. Instead, more mentally or spiritually. It is discovery. It is seeking truth. Everyone at different levels, individually, but as humanity moving towards intimacy.
amen.
And my dad loves Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson has some talks on parenting, no father or no mother.
Interesting.
And Veritas says, but my feelings differ from yours. Like I said, when I'm feeling troubled, I don't need to express it. I internalize and evaluate it and look at it like a problem to solve. Expressing it doesn't solve it. Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't help some people. There's probably some women who feel that way as well. Expressing it doesn't help.
I mean, I'm still very much the same way. There are things that I need to, the whole like choose your battles. There are things that happen throughout my life, whether it's on like a daily thing, whether I'm at work. Sometimes people will say XYZ to me, or this situation happens, and you have to analyze it quickly and ask yourself the question: is this worth my time? Is this the battle that I need to be fighting right now? Is there a battle that I need to fight?
I'm also thinking like expressing it doesn't necessarily solve it for women as either, but expressing it allows us to think through our thoughts to help us find a solution or figure out what we want to do to deal with the problem ourselves rather than getting advice from other people. But not everyone processes that way.
Yeah.
So
Some people journal.
yeah, I journal too. I process a lot of different ways. I write stuff out. I talk to people.
You're so well adjusted.
So what did we say earlier? We're not well adjusted. We're trying to be, but we're not not fully well adjusted. All right, Veritas adds, my problems aren't solved by expressing them. They are solved by identifying why I feel a certain way, evaluating what's causing it, and then addressing it. I don't need to be heard. I need a resolution. I feel like I need both. I do the identifying why I feel a certain way, evaluating what's causing it, and addressing it as well. But sometimes addressing it means being heard.
I definitely do what Veritas does, but I also do what you do. I need both because
Yeah.
sometimes when I'm left to my own thoughts, I spiral.
Yes, I
Don't
can
need to.
spiral. Also, like sometimes I just need the validation from another person, like that I felt this way, and I need you to accept that I felt this way about this particular situation.
Well, it's like the old adage, if you can't identify the crazy person on the bus, then it's you.
Mm,
And I think that's what like talking through it helps
mm,
to help you identify. Am I the crazy person?
yeah,
Because sometimes you are.
yeah. Sometimes, unfortunately, it was something that my ex-husband never identified himself. Everybody else is the problem, not me. Statistically, at least some of the time, the problem must be you. It's
And it's
probably not
hard
all
to
the
admit
time.
that. It's
Yeah,
hard to admit that. It sucks.
yeah, yeah.
It
I,
sucks admitting that
I,
you were in the wrong.
I hate it. But I do my best to, after time and reflection, and come to a realization that there are ways that I could have handled situations better, and then, but still stepping up to and apologizing for those situations is a challenge.
Yeah.
And the other person may not always be receptive to your apology when you admit you're wrong, but um, I
But
still
that makes
feel
it
I
better.
still feel I still feel better at least trying to reconcile those situations, rather than just being like, oh well, I fucked up, moving on to the next one, and hopefully I don't handle things the same way the next time it comes up with somebody else. Um, yeah. So my dad says, I think Veritas was just clarifying his personal area of less understanding, I think. Okay.
I think you're right.
Yep. Veritas. So while I can listen to women say they want to be heard, it's a foreign concept to me. I just
Mm.
think, what is that going to accomplish? The problem remains. Yeah, but like even if you don't understand it, you can still. I think it's still possible to respect that other people function differently, and um, try to allow room for that. Even it's like how just giving a tangible different kind of example, like how some people maybe don't understand what it's like to be trans, but you can still respect their pronouns and their chosen name, rather than dead naming them and misgendering them, just because you don't personally have experience or understanding it with that.
Well, this question also touches on, um, or this comment rather touches on the idea of empathy. Um, and I do think that that is something that our society has kind of started moving away from. Um, I love my social media. I love my social media, but it has created a subculture of non-empathetic people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We get to hide behind the comment section. Uh, as much as I love, as much as I love, uh, I know there's a lot of STEM type programming, like for children's television, that has generated more clinical thought as
Mm,
opposed to empathetic thought.
mm,
So when you get into shows like Bluey I'm sorry, not Bluey, um, Blue's Clues. When you have Blue's Clues as
mm,
opposed to, let's say, Sesame Street, the
mm.
objectives of both of those shows are very, very different.
Yeah.
So Blue's Clues is all about like trying to identify what is the thing, using logic, using um, logic most of the time, and being observant.
Mm,
Whereas Sesame Street taps into the emotional aspects of humanity. And for people to I on a fundamental level, I think it is vitally important for people to understand, even if they don't agree, you can disagree, but I do think it is vital for our um, um humanity, for our survival as human beings, if for nothing else, psychologically, that we need to understand each other. Uh,
Mhm.
Again, we don't have to agree, but we
Yeah.
need to understand each other.
Yeah.
The way we do that is with empathy. And so you ask the question, what is that going to accomplish? It's going to let the other person know, I care enough about you to listen to your problems. If this is how you, excuse me, if this is the most important way for you to communicate thoughts and ideas and feel like you are being validated, um, then I think that it's important to them. It may not be important to you. And
Yeah.
again, I feel like I'm lecturing directly to them. And I don't mean to put it out that way, but a byproduct of the conversation, I guess. But I think empathy is one of those things that is sorely lacking in our culture right now, that is vitally important to our existence.
Elon Musk will disagree with you. Death to empathy. It's the
He
enemy.
can disagree all he wants.
No.
Doesn't mean he's right.
No. And yet he wants people to empathize with him. Like, it's like he doesn't understand. It's like, dude, you want people to empathize with you, but you don't want other people to have empathy. Like,
Yeah.
you can't have it both ways. Like, if you want to receive something, then you need to also have some way of sharing that compassion back. I feel like, even if it's not the same method, in whatever's, the way that other people want to receive it, however that is, because it's different for everyone. All right.
Yeah.
Next, oh no, I feel like I'm getting behind again. Says, we were so close.
We
We were
gotta
so
go.
close. No, there's just a lot of comments back and forth, like right, all close together. I think we're not that far behind in terms of time wise. Men oftentimes seek internal resolution rather than external. Men aren't typically as social, are more logical than emotional, etc. That's kind of the root of why I don't think female methods for dealing with it can't really just be applied to men. That's why I push back against the talk about your feelings prescription for men. I do recognize that it's more common for men to seek internal resolution rather than external, but I do have a comment about this. I feel like this was something that my most recent ex was very common for him, but in doing so, he made a lot of assumptions that were incorrect about what my experience was. And that led to him spiraling and disappearing on me rather than recognizing that I still had very, very strong feelings for him. He assumed that my behavior meant that I didn't care about him or that my time with him didn't matter to me. And I'm like, if you just vocalized even some part of it or asked a question about, like, I interpreted this to mean this, is my interpretation correct or not? I think that sort of thing can be useful, because a lot of us make assumptions all the time. Is very common, but not all of our assumptions are accurate or correct. And that's where there is value in having conversation or external communication. You can still internalize and process this stuff once you have all of the details, but if you're processing based on assumptions, I think that's where you're going to find more value in having at least some external communication. What are your thoughts on that, Mike?
Truthfully, I'm kind of starting to zone out a little bit.
Fair enough. We are getting close to the 3 hour mark. I will quickly bring up the last few comments and then we'll wrap up. I still have a ton of other questions that we didn't get to, but we can have a part 2 of this discussion next week.
And we can share it in with us.
Yes, and next time Sharon will be with us as well. All right. I think there's only a few more comments, and we'll just bring them up and maybe not chat about them. As my dad says, I would strongly encourage looking into John Gray's Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus for insight into the differences. I have read that book.
I've always kind of wanted to, but I never.
It was one of the books that I read during one of my first breakdowns in my marriage, trying to understand my ex's name.
Books of the 90s.
Yeah, it was the late 2000s, 2000, the late aughts. This is why I like it. Anyway. Veritas says, I can respect women dealing with it differently. I'm asking for women to accept men dealing with it differently. Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Yep, I think so too. And you know, as I said, my most recent ex, that was actually one of the things that made him feel like that we were incompatible because we dealt with things differently. It's like, dude, you could still be together without, even if you process things differently. Veritas says, I can even accommodate it even if I find it irrational. I can listen if it makes her feel better and not just demand a resolution to appease my sensibilities. Yeah.
I think that right there is what you were talking about much earlier about having that fortitude to be in control of your faculties. And not allow your emotions to get the better of you. So I sometimes that because we're all problem solvers, right? We all want to solve the problem, and so kudos.
That's where some of that stoicism can come in handy.
Yeah.
Of just like sitting there and listening.
Yeah.
Yeah. My dad says, I often think God offers problems in order to stimulating humanity towards truth. This explains the problem of suffering. Though suffering comes growth towards deeper intimacy. Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting tired too. Veritas says, don't feel like you are lecturing. You are just talking out your thoughts on it and giving a perspective.
Thank you. I don't like people talking at me, so I hopefully I try to be a little bit more of
my dad corrected something he said think not things. I'm going to skip that one. Veritas says, I do understand with a lack of communication, you can base some thoughts on assumptions, which might be incorrect. I feel like we're catching up. I just talked about this. That can definitely happen, but that's more directly related to male-female relationship. Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's where I was talking about in that particular context. But we, again, like in other contexts, we make assumptions all the time, not just in relationship stuff. But that was definitely the context that I was talking about in there. My dad says intimacy is both being heard intellectually and at a feeling level. There's more types of intimacies than just those two as well.
Like that kind of intimacy.
Sexual intimacy, physical intimacy, mental intimacy. My dad says more than one book, it gets better. Oh, if they're Men Are From Mars. Mars and Venus in the Bedroom is another one that I've read. That's the sex stuff. I
still don't know what that is. No one's explained it to me.
Sex. It's the birds, bees, and then the stork delivers the baby.
So many animals involved with procreation.
That's right. That's how it is. Okay, Veritas says, I won't bother you guys anymore. Thanks for the conversation. You were both great. No worries, Veritas. Please, feel free to come back another time and drop in. If you didn't subscribe yet, subscribe. We love having this audience interaction. It really drives a lot of our conversation. So I don't mind that we did not get at all of the questions, because we can always bring more questions back.
But also, you say I won't bother you guys anymore.
Yeah,
this is not a bother.
Yeah,
this is the point.
This is the whole point. Exactly. This is why we live stream, right? We live stream to have that audience interaction, to have that, other perspectives for us to kind of draw on and talk about and share our experiences and we learn from our audience as well. Like we learned a new word from you. What was that word that
there was a few. Daniel threw one out.
Yeah.
Hermione Granger.
I was talking about the one that meant dating above your above your status. So yeah, like please join us again. And because we're live pretty much every week around the same kind of time, unless there's a conflict, so we have to adjust the day. And feel free to drop any questions that you want to discuss on a future chat in the comments and stuff as well. And hypergamy. That's the word.
That's the one. Hypergamy.
Never heard that before. Yeah. So like I said, we love the interaction, and hopefully we'll see you again at a future stream. And
also check out my television show.
Yes, on Zeem, Pineapple Improv. Search for that. It's just a free download.
pineappleimprov.com.
I finally added it to my favorites because I got a new phone.
Wait, you added the website to your favorites, or you added Zeem?
I downloaded. I had Zeem previously on my phone, old phone, but I didn't open it because my old phone, the battery is terrible. So I got a new phone and opened Zeem because I didn't even remember downloading it on my own phone, but I copied across and then I opened it and then I searched for it. So now I've added Pineapple Improv to my favorites to actually go and watch it. And so I will.
I will say last night's episode. So we always go live every other week, and then the episode becomes available for on demand like a week later. Mm-hmm. So last night's episode, we did a musical, and
nice.
I think it turned out pretty well.
Nice. I look forward to checking it out at some point when I have time to sit and watch other things, when I'm not binging my current anime, which is Attack on Titan. I just started a couple of days ago.
I just finished Daredevil.
Yeah, I finished that last, I watched it on the day that it was released, like every time. But yes, there you go. We're ending the stream. Veritas says that he will probably pop in again sometime. So thank you so much.
Yes, please.
I'm glad. Okay, bye.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.